You expect me to fight a human in live combat? Are you trying to get me demoted? Commander Schick's mandibles clicked in frustration as he glared at the training officer. The rest of the squad, tall, muscular warriors bred for battle, muttered among themselves. Some chuckled, while others appeared genuinely offended. Not just you, the training officer replied in a neutral tone. All of you. The human will face each of you in one-on-one combat. Standard rules, no lethal force. The murmuring intensified. Varnak, a veteran of 8 planetary campaigns, crossed his arms. What's the point of this? To evaluate the human's combat proficiency, the officer stated. Orders from high command. Varnak let out his sharp chitter. We already know the outcome. He stands no chance. Across the room, the lone human remained silent. He was shorter than the average recruit, lean rather than bulky. Unlike the rest, his skin was completely smooth. No armored plating, no claws, no enhanced musculature. He appeared fragile. The others observed him with amusement. Was this truly the species granted a position in the Dominion's military? What a joke. Sylvek turned to the training officer. We don't fight unarmed civilians. I won't take part in this farce. The officer barely reacted. Then you can explain your refusal to high command, or step into the ring and fulfill your duty. Sylvek narrowed his eyes but didn't argue further. He stepped forward, flexing his claws, and cast a single glance at the human. Fine, he muttered. I'll go first. The human walked toward the ring, his expression unreadable. He moved with an unsettling ease, as if none of this mattered. That only irritated Sylvek more. Both took their positions. The training officer raised a hand. Begin. Sylvek lunged, aiming for a swift takedown. No need to prolong this. A single well-placed strike would end it. Something shifted. Sylvek barely registered the movement before pain shot through his leg. He staggered. The human had done something fast and precise. The warriors outside the ring fell silent. Sylvek growled and attacked again, claws slicing through the air. The human ducked, twisted, and suddenly, Sylvek's arm was yanked in the wrong direction. The next moment, he was on the ground. His own weight had been used against him. Staring at the ceiling, he struggled to comprehend what had just happened. The human stood over him, completely unharmed, breathing steadily. The training officer barely looked surprised. Next, the squad exchanged uneasy glances. This was unexpected. Perhaps Sylvek had underestimated the human. Perhaps he hadn't taken the fight seriously. That had to be it. Varnak stepped forward. He wasn't like Sylvek. He fought with precision, controlled aggression. He wouldn't make the same mistake. He squared up, claws flexing. All right, human. Let's see what you've got. The human nodded. Again, the signal was given. Varnak charged. He expected the human to dodge again. This time, he was prepared to adjust, ready to counter. Pain exploded in his ribs. The human had closed the gap instantly, striking before Varnak could react. He staggered but wasn't finished. He lunged again, swinging with full force. The human redirected his momentum, grabbed his arm, and in one fluid motion, sent him crashing onto the mat. Silence filled the room. Varnak rolled onto his side, groaning. He had trained against dozens of species. He had fought in real battles. Yet, this human had dismantled him in seconds. He sat up, staring at him. What was that? The human met his gaze. Combat training, no further explanation, no gloating, just a simple, factual statement. The warriors shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Another warrior stepped forward. Let me try. One by one, they entered the ring, and one by one, the human took them apart. It wasn't brute strength. It wasn't just speed. It was the way he moved, efficient, deliberate, effortless. He let them attack and found ways to make them regret it. By the time the last warrior hit the ground, the squad was silent. The human stood there, barely winded. The training officer turned to the group. Lesson learned? No one spoke. The officer nodded. Good, because next, we're using weapons. A heavy stillness settled over the training hall. Every warrior had undergone rigorous combat training, sharpened by real battle experience. Yet, they had all been bested by an unarmed human using only technique. Now, they would test him with weapons. Standard issue, the officer instructed. Non-lethal settings, blades and shock rifles only. One warrior scoffed. This changes things. A human against our blades. That's a real fight. The others murmured in agreement. Hand-to-hand combat was one thing. In battle, weapons dictated the outcome. The human might be fast, but he wasn't stronger. He wasn't armored. Select your weapons. The human picked up a standard combat knife, small, single-edged, issued to all recruits. The warriors exchanged glances. No rifle, no larger blade. Just that? Sylvek grabbed his own weapon, a curved dueling blade designed for close combat. Unlike before, he took his stance seriously. No more underestimating. Begin. This time, Sylvek moved deliberately, testing the human's reflexes. A feint, a slash, fast and precise. The human deflected with his knife, stepping just out of reach. Sylvek pressed forward, controlling the space, forcing him toward the edge of the ring. Smaller opponents had limited options, restrict their movement, corner them, and they would fall. But the human wasn't trapped. He pivoted sharply, letting Sylvek's next attack slide past, then darted inward. Before Sylvek could react, cold steel pressed against his throat. Sylvek froze. His own blade was still raised, but useless. His pulse hammered against the metal. Match over, the officer announced. The human stepped back, lowering his weapon. Sylvek exhaled sharply. He hadn't even seen the strike coming.